Can you hear me? Okay, so let's start the lecture. So today we discuss about the assignment that is of the 40 marks for this subject. So you have to submit that assignment before the examination. So I will also upload the assignment and the slides on the LMS, so you can access from there as well. So today we discuss about that how you can make the assignment, what things you are required to make the assignment, and I will discuss you in detail that uh, uh, how that assignment can be done and which techniques, which method is required to do that assignment, and also discuss the assignment that what things you have to do in the assignment. So let's start uh, the assignment, uh, that how you can make this assignment. So it is actually based on based on an encryption standard that is called as a PGP standard. So this encryption standard is actually uh, this encryption standard is actually called as a PGP standard, or it stands for Pretty Good Privacy Standard. So that is a standard that is used for encryption and decryption. So which applications are using this standard? There are a number of applications which are using this standard. For example, there are different email applications and different other applications, for example, which are sending the messages to other system, for example, or other user. So they are using this type of application. For example, there's an email application like Outlook or some other applications. They are using this standard. So how they use this standard? Actually, every application which requires encryption to secure the data, because you know that in order to secure the data, in order to prevent the data from disclosing or from reading by the intruder or by the taker, or modifying by the taker or intruder, we need to encrypt the data. So that's why we require, that's why the applications which provide the data security as well, so they attach this type of a standard and provide the data encryption or data secrecy to the user. So for example, we have uh, how this standard is working. This standard is actually working like that. It has it it comes in a number of forms. For example, it can be used for the, we can say, encrypting messages, for encrypting the emails, and for encrypting the files in the system, or in the disk, for example. So it can be used in number of for number of purposes. So for emails, particularly it's used for the emails, to secure the emails. So in order to secure the email which is sent it by with the help of a particular email management system, like for example emailing application, for example, that Outlook or some other type of applications. So these are email management applications, or we say that these are email applications which are going to send the email to other user, for example. So to send the email to other user, they also require some encryption with that. So they use encryption methods. So that's why they are using some specific standards which are used to provide the encryption and decryption to the data. So they use a PGP standard. Mostly they use PGP standard to provide the encryption to the data. For example, uh, we have this PGP standard that comes that provides a number of methods or number of techniques to secure the data. How it secures the data? It secures the data with the different ways. For example, it performs hashing into the data using different algorithms, like for example, as we have discussed, different hashing algorithms like md4, md5, and other types of hashing algorithms, RIP md5. So these are the different algorithms which are used to do the hashing into the data. So when we are using these type of algorithms to hash the data, so then the data maintains its integrity. If any change is done by the intruder, if any change is done by the attacker, so the receiver can identify that. Receiver checks if because you know that in these algorithms, actually the value is generated, that is called as a hash value. And if that value is regenerated at the receiver, and if it matches to the original message, that means that is actually, we say that the message is not modified or message is not changed. So in this way, hashing is also done by the PGP standard. And in order to send the data, if it's, for example, large in size, to send the data easily, it also requires the compression, for example. So it also performs the compression into the data, so that they get the data, if it's large in size, that can be reduced and that can be easily sent it to other user. So in this way, along with these two functions, it also provides encryption. So as we know that the encryptions is of symmetric encryption as well as asymmetric encryption, or we say that symmetric key encryption or public key encryption. So uh, it uses both the algorithms, depends on the requirement of the application, that which application is using which type of encryption. For example, some application may use a semantic encryption, then they will use a DES algorithm or AES algorithm or some other types of semantic encryption algorithms. And if it is using the public key encryption, then it may use a public key crypto systems or cryptography algorithms, like for example RSA and DSS and some other type of elliptic cryptography. So they can use such type of encryption algorithms to encrypt the data. So actually, the purpose of the PGP standard is that it provides the data secrecy to the data, and it also provides the data integrity to the data. Or in any data, for example, particularly we are talking about here an email. So whenever any email is sent it to other user, so that email application is having that standard that is attached to that. And when any email is sent it to other user, that is encrypted with the help of PGP standard. And PGP standard can use different hashing algorithms. It can use different encryption methods. Either it could be a semantic encryption, or it could be a asymmetric encryption, or it could be a private key encryption, or it could be a public key encryption. So in this way, it provides a security to the email. It provides us secrecy and integrity to the email. And then we have, for example, uh, how it provides different encryption, and which you can say systems are using such type of standards. For example, it could be for the desktop systems, or it could be for the mobile systems, because there could be a same version, or there could be different version of any application for the desktop systems or for the mobile system. So that's why we say that it comes in the for the desktop systems as well as for the mobile systems. So in both systems, it provides a security or secrecy to the data by providing the integrity uh, and confidentiality of the data, or we can say secrecy of the data. And then we have, like, as I told you, that it is used for the desktop systems as well as the mobile systems, like for example laptops, other mobiles. So it can also use for that. For example, particularly it is used for the email systems or email applications. So it is actually installed with the email application as a plugin, for example, as other plugins are installed in the system. So in the same way, there the email application uses that the PGP standard as a plugin, and then it, uh, whenever any email is sent it to other user, it encrypts the email with the standard that is provided by the PGP, with the algorithms which are provided by the PGP, like for example, like for hashing, and like for encryption, or for the compression. So it provides the different algorithms, or it uses different algorithms which are used to provide the security, provide the security into the email, or provide the integrity of the email. So in this way, they can be used for the desktop applications as well. And then uh, we say that it can be used for the different systems. Like for example, it can be used for the Mac systems, or it can be used for the PC and also some other systems. So there could be different versions for the PGP standard. They can be used for the desktop as well as the laptop or mobile systems. And there, as far as the date, when any data is sent to other system, so if it requires some encryption, so it also contains some encryption tools as well, like for example PGP zip tool. So it provides an encryption to the data, so that if it is a large in size, so it can be reduced and sent to other system easily. So in this way, it provides a different functions, like for example we discuss here. It provides it contains different tools with itself. Like for example, it contains a PGP net share, PGP messaging, and PGP hold disk, for example. For example, there's a PGP net share. So if you want to share different files, uh, then uh, uh, then you can use a PGP net share. So the PGP net share is used to share different files with each other. And then we have a PGP messaging that is used to encrypt the different messages from which are sent it from sender, from user A to user B, for example. So they encrypt these messages so that an intruder or an attacker cannot read that messages without a proper key, or without decrypting with the proper key. And then we have, for example, data is available on the desktop or laptop, or the disk. So it also provides the integrity to the data, or confidentiality or secrecy to the data, so that the data which is in desktop or laptop, or for example in the disk, so that cannot be, you can say, modified, or that cannot be read without a proper method. So in this way, it provides these different functions using different tools. For file sharing, it uses a net share. For message encryption, it uses PGP messaging. And for encrypting the data in the laptop or in the desktop system, or any disk, it uses uh, the the PGP hold disk tool. So these are the different tools which are attached with the PGP application, or the application which is using the PGP standard. So they can also use, uh, along with the encryption and secrecy to the data, it provides different other functions which are provided by these different tools. Now, we have some other tools as well, like as we discussed, that it also provides the data compression as well. So with the help of the PGP zip tool, it can provide the data compression. And with the help of, for example, if any, there are some, you can say, disk images maybe in the system. So they can be encrypted with the help of the PGP virtual disk. So in this way it has so many tools which are attached with the application. So whenever any application that is required to send the data to other user, for example, so it uses such type of tools to encrypt the data and to decrypt the data. So along with the encryption and decryption, or along with the confidentiality, providing confidentiality to the data or secrecy to the data, it provides you can say integrity as well as a compression to the data. So in this way, they are using different tools and which are used to provide different security functions to the data. And then how you can access this application on this software. So you can access from this website, for example, and it could be for different you can say systems or operating systems like Mac or Windows. So you can access that application or that software from this website or from this link. And then you need to install that application in your system in order to perform different encryption methods, different encryptions to the email or to the data or to the file. And after installing that, you need to have number of other things you have to do. For example, once you have installed the application, so actually it requires to ask you about name and your name and name of the organization. And then you can access the application. And after accessing the application, the first task you have to do is that you need to generate the keys for that application. So the pair of the public key and the private key is generated in that application. How the pair of the public key and the private key is generated with the application. For example, we have a uh, uh, the application looks like this. So when you start this application, so it will ask you about the organization and about the you can say different details, name and organization. And then after that it will you need to create you need to give the detail of an email, for example, which you want to encrypt, uh, or which you want to send to other user, for example. So you have to give the detail of that. And for that you need to create the pair of the public key as well as the private key. For example, here, so you will create a pair of public key and private key. For example, this window explain further that how you can create the pair of the public key and private key. So you just enter the data about an email, and then after that you can have an option uh, for in the software or in the application to create a number of pair of private key as well as the public key, for example. So here you can do this with the help of this function. And after doing that, for example, here So you can provide the encryption as well as decryption, because you have now created the pair of the private key and the public key. Now you can secure the data, as you can see this function here. So it secure the data using encryption, using a public key and private key, for example. So it works like that. For example, if you have created the pair of the public key and private key, for example, if you want to keep the private key with yourself and send the public key to other users so that you can decrypt the application with that public key, for example. Or for example, another way, if you have the public key and there's a private key to the other user, and you have received the public key from that user, and you are encrypting the data with that public key and send the data to other user, and then he will decrypt the data with that private key. So in this way, you can generate number of public key and private key, and can exchange the keys with the other user, so that he can decrypt the data with the help of that key. So in this way, you can use this application or this software to encrypt the data and decrypt the data. So they are the number of you can also see the number of you can say applications and packages which are which are in these links. So you can also access them. So once you have installed the application, or once you have an application of PGP, then after giving the details of your name and organization, and for example uh, then you need to give the detail of the data which you want to encrypt. For example, if you want to encrypt the data, like for example an email, then you need to give the details of the email. Or for example, if you want to encrypt the data, or if you want to encrypt the data, like for example in a file, or the data on the disk, so then you can also give the details of that to encrypt by the PGP standard. Now that's you can say the software, or that's an application which you will use for the assignment. Now I will give you the details of the assignment, that what you have to do in the assignment. So up to now, if you have any question, uh, then you can also ask. So have you any question? Do you have any application, do you have any question?
Hello, sir.
Okay, so if you have any question, or if you have any difficulty, then you can ask. So it's very clear about the assignment, that I'm going to give you an assignment that is based on the PGP standard, and which is actually an application. You have to use that application, and you have to make an assignment from that application. Now I give you the details of the assignment, that how you can make the application. So I again and again ask you that if you have any question or any query, any difficulty, then you can ask from me. So now I discuss with you about the assignment as well. So that which assignment I'm going to give you, and also give the details of the assignment, and also discuss with you the way that how you can do that assignment as well. So for example, this assignment, like here, so as you can see on the screen as well, there's assignment that consists of the 40 marks. So for this assignment, as I discussed you that the tool or the application which you are using for making the data secure. So I discussed with you that how you can make the data secure. So I'm providing you complete detail of that. So I'm trying my best to explain you in better way so that you can understand that how you can do that assignment. So it's a as I already told you about that, the application, which application is going to be used for this assignment. So I give the details for that. Now you have to use that application. You have to install that application in your system. After installing that application in your system, then you can also use that, and after using that, then you can do the assignment. So as I told you that as far as the data is concerned, it can be of the different formats. Like for example, the data can be in an email format. The data can be in the disk, or for example, data can be in the file format. So if you want to make that data secure from an intruder, so that uh, he can say read that data without a proper means, or without having a proper key to that intruder, so he cannot read that data, or for example he cannot modify the data, or for example he cannot change that data. So that we need to have a proper security functions to the data. So as far as this standard is concerned, so it contains some functions. Like for example, it contains some functions of the encryption, or it contains the functions of the you can say integrity, or it contains the functions of like for example compression. So these are the different functions which are provided by the PGP standard. So we discussed that how you can use these different functions to provide, and you can say data secrecy, data confidentiality, and data integrity to the data. For example, an email, if you want to secure the email. For example, you have a we have there's an email. First of all, you have what you have to do, that you have to create your email account. For example, if you want to create an email account with your first name and last name, and then after creating your email account, then you have to create a pair of the public key and the private key. So once you have there's a function available in the software, and in the application, that how you can create the pair of the public key and the private key. After creating the pair of the public key and the private key, then you save that public key. And for example, send and you can say file uh, to your, for example, there's a your friend email account, and you will send that file to your friend, for example, which contains a public key, because here you want to keep for example, uh, you want to use a private key for the encryption, and you will send the public key to other user, so that when you send the data to that user, and that he can decrypt the email. So in this way, he can use this with the help of you can say method that I told you that. So there's a we discussed different methods of encryption. Like for example, or he can do that. He can keep the private key with himself, and he can send the public key to other user. Or for example, if he receives the public key from other user, then he can use that public key to encrypt the data, and send the email or send the data to other users so that he can decrypt that. So these are the different ways which are used uh, by the, you can say, an application. So it's a uh, way to send the data by using PGP standard. So if any application, like for example, as we discussed, that is an email application or that is an other type of application which are using the data and which are using the email and which are encrypting the email with the help of, you can say, an standard. And that is standard, you can say, a PGP plugin that is attached with the application or with the application which you are using to send an email to other user. So now what the details you have to give after doing such task, after creating a pair of the public key and private key. Now what you have to do is, for example, if there's a message and you have encrypted with the message with the private key, for example, and then you send that message to your friend's email account. Now you have already sent it the public key to your friend's email account. Now he got the public key, and now he received the encrypted message. So when he received the encrypted message, now he can be able to decrypt that email. He can be able to decrypt that message with the help of the email. So in this way he can use this technique uh, as a public key, for example, and the public key can be sent it by the sender and received by the receiver. Or for example, there's another way, like for example, if you are having the public key to encrypt the message, and then you can send that message to your friend which has the private key, for example, to decrypt it. So in this way you have some other way, other method, that is, for example, where you are encrypting the message with the public key and decrypting the message with the private key. And we have also discussed that why we are encrypting the message with the private key, and why we have other, you can say, way to encrypt the message with the public key. Like for example, if we want to provide the data authentication as well, that data is has been sent it from the authenticated user with the private key, then we use a private key, for example. Or for example, if you want to encrypt the data and we want to provide the secrecy to the data or confidentiality to the data, then we will use a public key as a key to send the email to other system. Or for example, if you have a other way, like for example, you encrypt the email, or you encrypt the message with the private key, and then for example, you have used private key, and you also send that private you want to send that private key to other user, for example. So as we know that the public key cryptography is also used to exchange the keys between the users. So if you want to exchange the key between the users, then you can use a private key as well. You can use a public key to encrypt the message, and that message contains a message with the private key, and then you encrypt that message with the public, and the other user has the private key to decrypt the message. Now when he decrypt the message with the private key, then he can also get that private key, and he can use that private key uh, as an encryption. So in this way, there are the different ways. Either you are sending the key with the file, for example, and you send that file that contains a public key, for example, or the private key, and you can send that to other user. So there's a possibility that there could be an intruder can get that file and can get the key and can be able to encrypt the message and can be able to decrypt the message. So in this way, in order to properly securely send the key to other user, So we use a public key cryptography as well, or public key encryption, to send the keys securely to other user. So in this way, we have a different ways or different functions. So you have to do this in this application or in this software, and then you have to answer these questions. Like, for example, if any data is that is encrypted with a private key or with the public key, then who can be able to read that data? So you have to answer that. And for example, how you can confirm that the message that is you are sending to other user, that is properly sent it by to other user, and the authorized user has received that. So how you can do that, how you can know that the message which is received by the authorized user, and or the message which is received by the user you are intended to send that message. So that is actually uh, these are the you can say things you have to identify. And then, for example, if a receiver has received an email, and you can read that email, or you can read that message, or you can decrypt that message. So how you can decrypt that message, or for example, with the help of the private key you decrypt that, or with the help of the public key you decrypt that, or for example, if you have received the private key through the public key encryption, and then how you can get that private key. So these are the different questions you have to answer. And then, for example, after receiving the message, you have to read that WhatsApp message, which is sent it by the you can say receiver or by the sender, and who is going to read that message, or who is going to receive that message, who is a receiver of that message. So that you have to identify that, and who is the sender of the message. You have to know about that, who's the sender and who's the receiver. So you have to answer these questions as well when you want to when you are going to encrypt the email and encrypt the message. So in this way, for example, you may observe that sometimes it also happens that you may have an email from